this afternoon I'm going to be telling you a little bit about what the Stockholm FinTech ecosystem actually looks like. And this is part of a study that was undertaken by the Swedish Agency for Growth Policy Analysis, or Tillväxtanalys in Swedish. My name is Ingram Bogusz. I'm a postdoctoral researcher at the Stockholm School of Economics. And from the beginning of the year, I'll be a senior lecturer at Uppsala University. And so I really want to draw your attention to this study because I think it's really fun and solves a lot of problems that we've had in the fintech space here, but also exists in the rest of the world. And the biggest problem that we've had is without a clear definition of what fintech actually is. How do we identify fintech companies and how do we follow them over time? Because existing industrial classifications classify firms as finance or technology or something else. And of course, fintech is both or neither. And so this is a study that's really started to deal with some of that kind of problem, at least in the Swedish space. But Tillväxtanalys have really gone even further than that. They've undertaken a study also of comparative regulations. So what the regulations are like here in Sweden, how they compare to other big and important fintech hubs in the rest of the world, places like Singapore, but also Hong Kong, London, New York. What are the differences? What are the things that we can learn, best practices? And then also a deep dive among the members of the fintech community in Sweden. What the problems are here, what the opportunities are here, and maybe how to look forward. So this is a report that will be presented to the Swedish Ministry of Finance fairly shortly. And I've been told to make sure that you all know that it will be publicly available next week. So really, this is an interesting bit of reading if you're interested in the Swedish fintech ecosystem, but also just an overview of the fintech global ecosystem, how everything fits together. So what we did and the small role that myself and my co-author Jonas Andersson from ITU Copenhagen undertook was the part of the study where we tried to actually identify fintech firms, given that they don't usually fit clearly into an existing industrial classification. And what we found in the end was a total of 514 firms, divided up something like this. So you see fairly even spread of firms across lots of different categories: credit, financial management, infrastructure is one of the biggest ones. So ID Kollen, who you heard from a little bit earlier, would fit into the infrastructure category. Financial services who provide infrastructure for other companies and other services. And then payments, of course, which Sweden is well known for example, through Klarna, which is very well established. And what we did was we started from a list of 350 firms that had already been self-identified as fintech firms. And we worked back from their industrial classification codes, and every firm in Sweden has a registered description of their activities. And so based on that, we used a machine learning algorithm to identify how it is that fintech firms actually describe themselves. What is it about fintech firms, irrespective of whether they fall into a finance classification or a tech classification, actually have in common. Based on that, we identified a further 143 firms, and we again then ran the machine learning algorithm to classify or categorize these firms into the categories that you saw on this slide. And we checked them manually, and then of course Tillväxtanalys or the growth agency had a fintech expert group who we double checked the numbers with. Having done that and having identified and developed a method for actually this multiple class or multiple category fintech firms, we went in and actually looked at what their performance has been like and what fintech has actually looked like in the last 20 years. So Sweden, you may know, is very known for its excellent records and excellent data, and this is particularly true of company records. So interestingly enough, a lot of the firms that today we would consider fintech were registered in the year 2008 or earlier. So they're at least 10 years old, although in 2008 we wouldn't have called them fintech. And there was a steady growth with a peak in 2014 of just over 60 firms, and that number has come down. Of note is the fact that 2019's registrations are incomplete, and we don't have or didn't have data around 2020 yet, so that should maybe be seen in that perspective. So really interesting growth, but then also a bit of plateauing and a slower growth in the number of new firms, but overall still quite a lot of active firms. Then the question that's near and dear to my heart is, are they finance firms? Are they technology firms? And the answer is fairly mixed. 223 of the 474 for which we had numbers, so 47% of them actually consider themselves to be tech companies, not finance companies, which is really interesting. That's the top row in the slide. And only 30%, or 145, actually consider themselves to be finance, which is also very interesting. That's the second row from the bottom. And of course, this data is all available in the report that'll be released next week. There's also been exciting growth in employment numbers. I beg your pardon, not in employment numbers, in financial numbers. So for reasons related to how the statistics are collected, this only includes numbers that are not finance or firms that are not finance. Even so, an impressive growth from a turnover of just over 600 million revenue in the year 2000 to 6.8 billion by the year 2018. So that's an enormous increase with an average growth rate of 21.5% from 2000 to 2018. And then employment has also grown enormously from just over 300 firms, and this includes both finance and tech firms, 340 employees in the year 2000 to 9,700 in 2018, which is the most recent year for which we have data. Really, really fast growth. And significant contribution to GDP as well. When it comes to gender, we see that things started off fairly equal among men and women, but we see that the number of men in FinTech is actually growing faster than the number of women. And we know, of course, that technology companies are traditionally male-dominated. So no major surprises there. This slide here looks at where this activity is really concentrated, and you can see that Stockholm, the first column, is the hotspot of Swedish FinTech, but there is significant activity both in Gothenburg and in Malmö. That said, perhaps a lot of Malmö startups choose to have a relationship with Copenhagen instead, as that's geographically a little bit closer. Sweden really is known for its high levels of innovation and the ease of doing business here, which is very much visible in our growth of financial and other technology companies. And there are a lot of real big opportunities as a consequence, although Sweden has a very small market, which sometimes is problematic when it takes getting innovations to market. It also means that a lot of firms are born global fairly fast. We have a lot of and very strong investing in research and innovation, but there's a need for financial capital, particularly at the earliest stages of small firm development, particularly in FinTech. And this is an opportunity both for Swedish investors and for foreign investors to get involved in what is a growing and in some ways already quite mature ecosystem, as FinTech's presence of course indicates. So thank you. Please look out for this report, and feel free to contact me if you have further questions.
Okay, thank you, Claire, a lot for that presentation. I'm going to save my questions till a little bit later when we go to the Q&A for you, Claire. So thanks for that. And the next speaker is Per Nordkvist from the Swedish Financial Supervisory Authority. So please, Per.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for having me on as a speaker today. My name is Per Nordkvist, and I am the head of the Innovation Center at the Swedish Financial Supervisory Authority. As many of you know, our mandate is mainly consists of three parts. It's that we are here to promote a stable financial system, which enjoys high confidence from its users, but also high level of consumer protection. And with these three mandates, we also need to balance it so that it's a sustainable financial system that is well functioning and that gives its consumers and the companies the financial services and products that they need. And today I'm going to talk just briefly about our innovation center and then give you just a very, very quick update on the EU digital agenda so you know what is coming in the next couple of years. But first, being from a financial regulator or the supervisory authority, it's important to remember that we always have risks in our DNA. That's what we do. We try to mitigate risks and manage risks. And this is also true for the financial innovation space. It is not a playground on the financial markets. There are rules and regulations that everyone needs to follow, even the most innovative and most exciting smaller fintech startups, which is why we spend quite a bit of our time at the Innovation Center talking to these smaller players who have innovative ideas. Because we have had the Innovation Center for the past 3 years with the main object to increase the dialogue with the market and make it a bit easier for those first steps of innovative firms and products to get to market. And this is we do this by not just talking to the smaller firms, but of course even larger and more mature firms have innovation happening. So we have a lot of discussions with those as well. One other thing that we do and spend quite a bit of time on is coordinating our internal work so that we speak with one voice from FI. If we are talking about cloud services in the banking area or in the insurance area or in the markets area, shouldn't really differ. It's very important that same risk, same rule apply even in the innovative space. And third part of our agenda at the Innovation Center is quite a bit of international work. We are heavily involved in both the EU level and also in an international level to make sure that the rules and regulations that come from these bodies are well suited or as well suited as possible for the Swedish market. And one of these areas that we are going to work quite a bit on the next couple of years is the EU digital agenda, which was launched earlier this year after a few workshops and consultation period earlier this year. But this agenda consists of 4 main areas. The first one is that the EU wants to reduce the fragmentation of the financial market to create a digital single market with an increased level of cross-border activity. So it should be easier to set up in Sweden and sell your product in Germany, for example. And all this is, of course, a way of enhancing or enlarging the market for financial firms. The EU also wants to facilitate innovation with increased cooperations, both between us as regulators and you as financial firms. So they're putting quite a few initiatives on increasing this cooperation. The data usage, or you want to promote a data-driven innovation, which basically means to increase the data available for financial firms. But as always, you need to balance these risks. So you focus quite early now on the cyber resilience to try to counter the increasing number of cyber attacks. All in all, this EU agenda has 13 objectives, and FI and the Innovation Center is heavily involved in most of them, if not all. But the 2 highly prioritized projects at the moment, both from the EU side and from our side at FI, is to strengthen the digital operational resilience of the financial market. With this increased digitalization that we have seen over the past couple of years, and especially now during this pandemic, we have also seen an increase in cyber threats or cyber attacks. So this just shows the importance of the financial firms or the financial sector to strengthen the cyber resilience. And this also includes an oversight of the critical third-party providers. Negotiations are ongoing on the EU level and the EU Council at this moment, but they're moving forward quite rapidly. So I'm sure we're going to have more news within the next month or so. The second part of the prioritized project is a long-awaited regulation on crypto assets and blockchain technology. These have huge possibilities, both for the markets, but also for consumers, of course, but they come with very, very high risks. So we have been talking about the risks with these technologies or crypto assets for the past couple of years. So this is a really good step forward from the Commission that we now have a legislative proposal. And there's a very comprehensive legislation that tries to balance the need for innovation, market integrity, and consumer protection. Some other areas that we're going to see more going forward, they are put up for the next couple of years. The agenda goes to 2024. So you can see here just a few of the other areas that we will touch upon going forward. 3 of these, the AI tools, the open finance, and cloud, the usage of cloud, are basically the promote data-driven innovation, which the ambition is to make it easier to access data that consumers are willing to share, to use these more effective ways of conducting your financial products and services. But for this to happen, you also need to work with the EU-wide digital identities, which will make it easier to onboard clients and also reduce the risks of money laundering and so. So this is also a big part of enhancing and making the markets bigger, even for smaller nations as Sweden. It should be easier for our companies to cross-border out to different parts of Europe and be sure that the identities can be easily controlled, even in those areas. Thank you very much for me. That was a brief overview of the Innovation Center and our priorities for the next couple of years. Thank you very much, and back to the studio.
Thank you, Per. And stay put. We'll come back to you. You're going to be in the Q&A, of course, later on. So time for our next speaker, which is going to be Henrik Bergman from the Swedish Bankers Association. So go ahead, Henrik.
Thank you very much. I'm actually going to try to give you a description of digital transformation of the Swedish financial infrastructure, which is a journey over 60 years. And a few words to start with about the Bankers Association. We work with the regulatory advocacy, which means that it's important in the interest of our members to be a lobbying organization for regulation that is sound. Also public confidence, very important with the trust factor. But the part that I represent is the banking infrastructure, which we do a lot of activities in. And to start the journey, we started in the 1960s, where we used to have a lot of collaboration, starting then, where you see that we had the branches, and the idea was to, one after another, put services closer to the customers. That was when we founded the clearinghouse, the bank gyro, with a lot of common clearing services. And then came the ATM network, the cards in the 80s, and then the internet banking late 90s, and then the mobile banking developing the last 10, 15 years. What we have learned from this is that scale is very important, reach is important, and penetration, and also that when we invent something, it needs to add value. But most important of all is customer friendliness, and that we can have also a bad example where we said that we wanted to invent a cash card, a collaboration where you put money and you have to load the card, and you load it in specific card readers, and then you also have to bring out to the market card readers to read for the merchants, separate card readers. That was not customer friendly at all. So therefore, what you can see at the bottom of the page, the cash card, it vanished from the market very quickly. But what we have good experience from lately is especially mobile payments and electronic IDs provided by banks. What you can see from the figures is that the Swish, which is a mobile service which works originally for person-to-person transactions to replace a cash exchange, you make it from mobile to mobile instantly. Then it developed also from person to business and for commerce. So today, when this started 2012, it was the person to person, but today it's also for commerce. And what is really interesting is that the work with the user friendliness that has made 8 million Swedes out of 10 million inhabitants to use this service regularly. There is also something I want to point out, that the mix, when you build something, you can benefit from each other. So the mobile bank idea, or the bank idea which developed a mobile bank idea, has the same kind of penetration and has also been like a user success that is used for many different services in the society. What this digital development brings is also that we have, of course, a less cash society where cash is decreasing. And you can see on the left side from the graph that ATM withdrawals decreases and goes towards zero, while card use, and I could add, this is not in the diagram, but also the use of instant payments like Swish is developing and have higher and higher rates. And this has consequences for crime. So on the right-hand side, you can see the graph pointing out with the staples that fraud is increasing, unfortunately, but you can see, of course, that bank robberies and cash in transit robberies goes down to zero. So this is the criminality change, and of course that needs actions. So what we actually do now, we have many big infrastructure initiatives in the market going on. We have one very big thing, like where we put new rules based on European standards, and we wanted to do on Nordic level to benefit from that. And the Nordic Payment Council sets the rules for a totally new payment infrastructure. And this infrastructure will be, of course, delivered by someone. And there is the company P27, which Lars, that comes after me, will present the details. But this is a huge project with the rules and the new infrastructure. We also have, as mentioned, a lot of, with the digitalization, we need to work a lot with AML, KYC, counter-fraud and cybersecurity. One example is a project between the banks and the police, which is called Samlit for the AML. We have the Invidem, which is a Nordic company for KYC, and we will have many other initiatives going on in this area. We also have, as known in Europe, the Payment Service Directive 2, which gives specifically requirements for third-party access to the infrastructure. And with that, in the long run, open banking will be the new possibilities in collaboration between the banks and third parties. So we have a collaboration forum, Swedish API forum, where banks and FinTechs meet to discuss this specifically, how to make it good for the common customers. We also have, since a couple of years, a digital platform which for how to get access to houses smarter. When you buy or sell a house, you need a lot of exchange of information, and we created a platform for that, which is called Tambur, for the company UC, delivering that. And that means that instead of a couple of hours, it takes only a few minutes to exchange this transformation, when we can collaborate between real estate agents, banks, and the customers. Then we also have in the Bankers Association feasibilities of new things like e-messages, how to switch banks with digital processes, and that and other initiatives we take up and work on. So with that said, what's going on, as a summary, can only say that in Sweden we have good environment for this, because we have a high level of digital readiness and a great interest in technology. But most important is that we have very critical customers that demands a lot of development. So we see it as customer driven. And then we have our long tradition of collaboration, which is not only between banks, it's now between banks, fintechs, and authorities and the whole market. So that is how I want to see how we're going to work with this further. Thank you.
Okay, Henrik, thanks a lot. That's a bright future. Thank you for that. And I'll come back to you, or you're going to be in the Q&A later as well. So now it's time for the next presentation, and it's going to be from Lars Sjögren at P27 Nordic Payments. So go ahead, Lars.
Thank you very much, and a good afternoon to everyone. I'm Lars. I'm the CEO of the company Nordic P27 Nordic Payments platform, and thank you very much for inviting me to this conference. Really happy to be here. The backdrop for starting P27 is obviously the payments revolution that is going on as we speak, and I think that many of us who are joining a FinTech conference like this have noticed that. But still, there are many things that we need to fix when it comes to payments. They are still being perceived to be expensive, especially when we talk about cross-border payments and corporate payments. They are perceived to be non-transparent, and there are lots of frictions in many cases. So customers are not particularly happy with the payment experience today. Then behavior has shifted considerably significantly with mobile payments, and e-commerce also in a COVID-19 world becomes more and more important. And then obviously, what is cash? Most Swedes today can't actually, at least in the younger generations, they can't actually describe what the Swedish krona looks like. So things are changing. And then just around the corner, we have the digital currencies, we have the Internet of Things, and we have the world where they really would ask, what is cash actually? Do you remember how it used to be? So in this world, we need to do something. We need to fix the infrastructure because the existing infrastructure has clear challenges. Okay. So then P27. P27 stands for payments, and 727 for the 27 million people that lives in the Nordics. So we are here to basically connect everyone in a new instant and batch payments network that will connect everyone and also beyond. And we are obviously then looking at the rest of Europe and to start with fixing interoperability in between the Nordic countries and the rest of Europe. And where are we today? Well, across Europe, this is not a specifically Nordic situation. There is a lot of fragmentation in this infrastructure. But if we look at the Nordic countries, where there are 8-9 legacy infrastructures, all of them in one way or the other in need of upgrade. When it comes to payments types, we haven't really had the SEPA moment in the Nordics. So just in Sweden, we have, I think, 79 different payments types. Is that really something that we need? And then when it comes to the situation that is in the Nordics with different currencies, it is just an added complication for us. We have many global fintechs and we have massive digitalization. I think that Henrik gave an excellent perspective on that. So with P27, instead of the fragmented infrastructure, our ultimate ambition is to have one platform. Then maybe there will be two, but to have one platform to get the scale and to be able to do the cross-border perspective to take care of that. Today there is a discussion on connecting a couple of the European platforms with the new Riksbanken platform, the TIPS platform. Basically, P27 has already solved that problem through the way we have set up our infrastructure. Standardization is something that we are working hard on to simplify for corporates and customers to move across borders and start to use ISO 20022 standards for all types of payments. That is something that you will get also with the P27 platform and the work that is being done with the Nordic Payments Council. With P27, there are 4 things that at least we aim to give to the market. That is true instant capabilities, both cross-border and domestic. We will make no difference if it's a domestic or cross-border transaction. Lower cost and complexity. If you have a platform that covers 50% of all transactions in the Nordics, you get certain benefits. We can also design the platform in a future-proofed way, so we have the right type of resilience in the P27 platform. And for those of you who are fintechs, just think about what can you do when you have a completely up-to-date and modern platform to build your solutions on. I think that this is the really interesting part with P27. How can you take real advantage of that? Because already today, with the legacy and fragmented platforms in the Nordics, we have been pretty good at building on top of what is in there. But with P27, I think we can unleash a new wave of information, of innovation. And there, I think the fintechs have a really, really important role to play. Then if we just think about the initiative, because P27 is actually the largest ongoing infrastructure project in Europe when it comes to building a cross-border multi-currency platform. Obviously, we have good sponsors. The largest banks in the Nordics are owners of the P27 platform, but all participants actually can join the platform on the same terms. So it's very much an open platform. So how do you drive something like this? There are 4 principles that we are trying to work according. And remember, we are a startup. A year and a half ago, we didn't exist. Today, we have a full functioning, complete organization that is preparing for the first transactions. And for us, super important is to think big, to remember the vision. What is it actually that we are going to achieve? To work in a collaborative way with the financial industry in the Nordics and in Europe. And there, the work we are doing together with the Swedish Bankers Association and the same in Denmark is absolutely key, because this is a joint effort of an entire sector. Collaboration is the key. Then we cannot only talk about the visions that is going to happen in 5 years, everything will be fine. We also need to focus and work on a more short-term delivery schedule, and we are definitely doing that. And important for fintechs is that we have designed the platform in a modular way. So we have a core clearing system that connects to settlement systems, and then you fintechs can build other solutions on top of that, together with P27 or on your own. So just to wrap it up, this is the P27 journey. I think it's quite interesting to do something entirely new, to build and break new ground, solve the problems of today and future-proof for the future. So that is what we are doing in P27. As you can see, it is a little bit of a winding road, but that is just what makes it much more fun. And I will stop there and say thank you. This was a quick overview of P27. Anyone interested to know more, check our website. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Lars, for that quick overview. And you will also stay online and get back to us during the Q&A. So let's head on to the next speaker, which is Stefan Ingvarsson from Stockholm Business Region. Stefan, please.
Thank you, and welcome to Stockholm, Sweden. Today is the day when the Nobel Prizes are delivered, and the banquet is in the City Hall. Although not this year, we'll hope we can invite you all back next year for that very special event. I'm the CEO of Stockholm Business Region, which is a fully owned entity by the City of Stockholm that works to promote the city and attract investors, talents, and visitors to the greater Stockholm region. My subsidiary Invest Stockholm is our official inward investment promotion agency. So, looking at the Stockholm region, I'll try to give you an overview of how we see it and the benefits of the Stockholm region. We work together with 55 other municipalities in the larger Stockholm region, the Stockholm Business Alliance, attracting investments, international talents to our region. And this is, of course, a very strong region, both in a Swedish and a European perspective. We are contributing quite a lot to the national GDP in Sweden, and we are the financial capital of Scandinavia. The Stockholm region has about 4 million inhabitants and have one of Europe's highest regional GDP per capita. And Stockholm has a lot more economic power than, I would say, most other regions within the EU, a few, of course, exceptions from that. But we are, above that, I would say, one of the leading tech ecosystems in the whole of Europe and definitely also in the world. We are, per capita, after Silicon Valley, the place on the globe which has produced most unicorns for the last 5-6 years. And we have a very strong tradition of being strong in ICT, in the tech side, and also life science. And we see now a lot of cross cooperation between those sectors also that brings new companies to the market. A lot of very interesting things is happening right now in Stockholm. Not at least in the financial sector, which Claire also described earlier on here. Of course, you can compare regions around the world in very many different ways. When we do this, and we do this all the time in our efforts to promote the region, of course, we see that Stockholm is among the world's most attractive regions. In the most ways you try to make these rankings, we turn up on the 1st to 10th place. And I think one of the key things that are behind that is a very, very strong level of education in the workforce. We are open to the world. We have been involved in trade for hundreds of years. We are very strong advocates of free trade. We are very open to new ideas. We are a fairly tech-savvy nation and city, and we welcome people and companies to try new things here in Stockholm. We are a very good test bed for doing that. In order to help you and help investors get a grip of what the financial sector is, we do, of course, reports, and we put up promotional material on this, so trying to make it a bit easier to understand how to enter the Stockholm market and how to be able to develop your business here. And looking at the Swedish financial sector, it is in an extreme sense concentrated to the Stockholm region. Claire showed us early on that there are, of course, activity also in the Gothenburg area and in Skåne, in Malmö, but we are the really strong part of that, and has a very solid financial ecosystem with an open business culture on top of that. We are also a city and a region that is really strong coming to the digital infrastructure. We have an almost 100% fiber to the home coverage. We were the city where 4G was launched first. We are now seeing a couple of companies coming up on the 5G market. There is a lot of connectivity, of course, also between the financial sector and the tech sector. A few of those other that have been presented here has also shown that the tech and the finance is really growing hard here in Stockholm. The FinTech playground here in Stockholm is large, and we have tried to make it a bit easier to understand how big it is, and we are always updating our taxonomy of the Stockholm FinTech guide. And what we can see that as of today, about 80% of the FinTech companies in Sweden are incorporated in the Stockholm region. And if you broaden the scope a bit more, we can see in a Nordic perspective that it is Stockholm that is the largest financial hub, the largest FinTech hub. And I think this is important also because a lot of the investments that is now pouring into the Stockholm region is, of course, looking for the talent that we have here. And I'm sure that we'll see quite a few of those also in the coming years. I can also say that we'll probably see a few more unicorns coming out of the Stockholm environment. The really big successes that have been going on for the last couple of years, we see now that the founders and the owners are reinvesting their money both in the traditional tech sector in Stockholm, in the FinTech sector, but also quite a lot in the green tech sector. So there's a lot of interesting companies that are combining technology from maybe classic ICT companies with financial solutions to solve a lot of the sustainable issues that we are facing as a world. And it's a really interesting environment to be a part of those very creative processes that will hopefully find solutions to the bigger problems that we are facing. If you are more interested in this and how we work in Stockholm with these areas, you're most welcome to download our Stockholm FinTech guide, where we can show you in more detail how we work here in the city of Stockholm with these issues. So I think I'll stop there as an overview of the Stockholm FinTech Society. Thank you.
Thank you, Staffan, for that report. And you will also stay put for the Q&A. And now it's time for the next speaker, and it's pleasure to introduce Dilan Ölcer from the Central Bank in Sweden. Please.
Hello, everybody. My name is Dilan. I am an advisor at the Swedish Central Bank, the Riksbank. I am super excited to be here today to tell you about a project that the Riksbank has been working on for a while now, together with the central banks of Norway, Denmark, and Iceland, and in collaboration with the BIS, the Bank for International Settlements, in establishing an innovation hub Nordic center in Stockholm. Now, my colleague, by the way, from the Riksbank will tell you more about all the other projects that are going on within the Riksbank. But when it comes to this project, let me just start by taking a step back. Now, central banks, our main job is to promote and maintain a safe and the safety and stability of the money and payment system. We have to do that. And you better than me know that there are a lot of digital developments going on, and technology is advancing faster than ever. This means that from the central bank's point of view, and the Riksbank is the oldest central bank in the world, we've existed for more than 350 years, we need to know exactly what is going on out there. We need to know what impact technology has on the money and payment system. And we have to be at the cutting edge of technology in order to be able to serve our societies continuing in the future as well. So, and also, when it comes to digital innovation, we know that it has no borders whatsoever. So collaboration internationally is absolutely key. The BIS, the Bank for International Settlements, which you can think of as the central banks of central banks, established in 2019 the BIS Innovation Hub in order to foster international collaboration on innovative financial technology among the central banking community. And the mandate is sort of threefold of the Innovation Hub, which is to identify and develop insights into critical trends in financial technology of relevance for central banks, to explore the development of central bank public goods, for example, proof of concepts, in order to enhance the functioning of the global financial system, and thirdly, to serve as a focal point for a network of central bank experts on innovation. The BIS has sort of identified 6 different areas where it believes that there will need to be a lot of work going forward. And one part of that is to look at sort of effective supervision to ensure that we have a safe and sound financial market going forward. That would involve looking at technologies, AI, machine learning, big data, etc. When it comes to the second, it's about looking at the next generation of financial market infrastructure. A third area is to look at central bank digital currencies and the cross-border payments of all kinds. And of course, this is an area where you will hear more from my colleague talking as well, but this is also an area where many central banks in the world are currently working. Another focus area of the BIS Innovation Hub will be working on open finance. Cybersecurity will be one, and then also sustainable finance. So these are sort of the broader themes, and within these there will be different projects that the Innovation Hub will be working on. The BIS started off by last year to open 3 hub centers in Basel, where the headquarters of the BIS is, but in collaboration with the Swiss Central Bank. They have one in Switzerland. There is another hub in Singapore and a third one in Hong Kong. And this year, the BIS announced that they would want to extend this network and establish hubs in areas where there is a very vibrant ecosystem for FinTech. And also where the central banks actually have expressed a very clear interest in pushing for more work within financial technology and innovation. So there will be new centers opening in London in collaboration with Bank of England. The ECB will have 2 centers, one in Paris and one in Frankfurt. Bank of Canada will be a collaborator and have a center in Toronto. And then there will be a center in Stockholm representing the Nordics, where the Riksbank, together with the central banks of Denmark, Iceland, and Norway, are the collaborating central banks. In addition, there will also be a strategic partnership with the New York Fed in this work. Now, when it comes to the BIS Innovation Hub Nordic Center, as I said, it will be hosted by the Riksbank in collaboration with the central banks of Norway, Denmark, and Iceland. And it will be located in Stockholm and open when the preparations are finalized. And let me just say a few words about the preparations. From the Riksbank side, we were absolutely convinced from day one that our societies, the Nordics and in Sweden, there are a lot of initiatives and we have a very vibrant ecosystem. And from the Riksbank side, we want to be working in these areas. So we presented a candidacy to the BIS and we were very happy, of course, when they were equally convinced that they should establish a center here. The Riksbank also had to go to the Swedish Parliament in order to ask the Parliament to amend the Riksbank Act and also sort of approve that we co-finance the activities of the center. This also means that it's not only the Central Bank of Sweden, but it's also the Parliament that sees value in working more in this area. In addition, the Swedish government is currently working or negotiating actually a host country agreement with the BIS that will regulate how the BIS as an international organization will be operating in Sweden. So this shows that it's the central bank, it's the parliament, it's the government together, and together with the central banks of Norway, Denmark, and Iceland, that are in this joint work. And this will be a collaboration among central banks, but it will be highly, highly collaborative with the private sector and the financial services providers and also with academia. And I'm very excited to see what it will deliver in the future. And I'm absolutely convinced that there will be very interesting results coming from this center going forward. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Dilan. And you will also, of course, stay online for the Q&A. And as you mentioned, we're going to go to the next speaker, which is a colleague to you at the central bank. So the last one, but not, of course, the least. Carl Andreas Claussen. Please.
Thank you very much. Yes, so I will speak about what the Riksbank is doing in preparation for the future of money and payments. And I have 7 minutes, so it will be just a snapshot of it all. Let me start first by saying that the Riksbank, like most other central banks, have essentially two tasks. One is to provide a safe and efficient, or to promote a safe and efficient payment system, and the other is to ensure price stability. In order for it to be possible for us to provide price stability, we have to have our own currency. And that also means that we have to help in making the Swedish krona an attractive currency in Sweden. So together, safe and efficient payment system, but also the price stability aim means that we have to look at the payment system and make sure that it works and is attractive going forward. So what have we done up until now? Well, there are essentially two key things that we have done, and that is also like what most central banks are doing. On the one hand, we are providing public money that everyone can use for making payments, and that is cash. And cash is, or can be seen as kind of providing the fundament, or be the fundamental for the whole system, payment system and monetary system, as all other forms of money can be seen as claims on cash. So if you have money in a bank, you can see it as a claim on cash. And second, we provide what we call a real-time or a gross real-time settlement system. That is a system that makes it possible for banks to transfer money between them. And it's essentially this system that makes it possible to make payments from one bank to another. And if you look overall, the payment system in Sweden is both efficient and safe. Especially, I would say this efficient compared to, or in an international context. However, there are still room for improvements. And let me turn to the next picture. So one of those are in the area of, or in domestic payments. It's still the case that some payments takes several days. So if you want to buy a car, for instance, and pay a larger sum of money, it will normally take at least 1 day, but it can take up to 3 days before the money is transferred to the seller's account, etc. So what we are doing there in this field now is that we plan to launch a new settlement system for, or it's what we call an instant payments, and this system will make it possible to transfer money between banks and one by one and instant. And let me also mention that we will use the ECB system, which is called the TIPS for that, but it will be for payments in Swedish krona, but we'll be using the ECB system. And cross-border payments, we heard about that before here today, so that can be really slow, it can be very expensive, etc. So here, this is also an area where we have several initiatives. One of those is that we work together with the ECB to see if we can connect the Swedish coming instant settlement system with the ECB system. So that would facilitate instant payments between Sweden and the euro. But we also have other initiatives with other central banks, also with the BIS. And then national money. So as I said, we can see that the cash that we have provided as kind of providing or be fundamental or be a kind of a glue for the whole system. But the development in Sweden is very special when it comes to cash. So this graph shows cash in circulation as a share of GDP going back to the 50s. And we can see the blue line in the chart, it's been falling for the whole period. And I've also put in there similar figure or similar data for a euro area and advanced economies. And you see there the development is the opposite. So this led us, so if this continues, and we see signs of this continuing, so cash is about, it seems, to more or less disappear. It means that it's not longer, or this cash as being what the money that all other money in Sweden is a claim on implicitly. That cannot really hold anymore. So that raises a lot of more fundamental questions. And we, back in 2017, we started thinking maybe we have to adopt our money, adopt the cash to a new digitalized situation. Maybe it's not our money that people are abolishing, but rather the technology, the old paper-based technology. So we started what we call the E-Chrono Project, which looked at whether we need to, whether we shall, whether it's a good idea, and what it will look like, etc., with a digital type of cash. So let me quickly say a little bit about that. So what would it be? We call it an e-krona. So we are thinking of it as a complement to physical cash. It will be Swedish krona, normal Swedish kronas issued by the Riksbank, available for the general public, can be used for payments, exactly like cash is today. The difference will be that it will be digital. So it's really the digital that is the key here. But then there are lots of other issues that we'll have to decide upon, and that is whether we will have to put in some frictions there, so not all of the bank deposit moves into the e-krona. Should it pay interest rate? How should we distribute it? Should we connect it to the existing payment system, or should we create something new? Questions like that. We haven't decided on any of those questions, and we have not decided whether to issue or whether not to issue. Yes, so that was a very brief snapshot of 3 key areas where we're working. Thank you.
Thank you, Andreas. And thank you all for your different presentations. I hope that you guys are still all online, and that I can see you on the screen somewhere. But anyhow, let's go to the Q&A. As I said, I think it's amazing to have you all connected in the same time and sort of space, because you are, in my opinion, sort of the key players in Sweden when it comes to financial infrastructure. So we heard a lot about your different sort of work that you're doing and what you're prioritizing, but I wonder if you sort of can jointly talk to us or tell us about what is there anything unique in the Swedish financial infrastructure, and sort of what is that, and how does that sort of compares to the rest of the world? So the word is up for grabs.
I'll take that one.
Go ahead, Claire.
I think one of the things that I'm so often impressed with is the level of collaboration, and the long history and culture of banks working together with each other. That is very unusual in a global context. So banks working together, but then also kind of large and small actors working together, regulators working together with both private actors, and really quite well with each other. And I think that really makes it, it's not easy to build an innovative ecosystem, but it creates really good conditions where there are open lines of communication, and there already is quite a lot of trust between and among actors. And so that's really positive, and if not completely unique, incredibly unusual in the Swedish space.
But I would echo that, and also as a touch upon that in the presentation. And the examples that Henrik gave on collaboration on Swish and on the Bank Girot and the Bank ID, and it's actually the similar in many of the other Nordic countries. This is a very unique culture, and I think it's something that we should try to protect, because I think that there is a lot of power in the collaboration aspect here. And if we then look at the Nordics, I would say we have been fairly successful actually on nurturing and allowing fintechs to grow. So I think that the way we are doing this, we're actually, I would say the sector or the banks and the fintechs together driving for innovation, I think that has been a really successful way for the transformation here.
Okay, I have to steer you up a bit, because otherwise we're going to have like a online chaos here. So, Dilan, how do you reflect on my question?
Well, I definitely agree on what Claire said about collaboration, and Lars echoed that too. As I mentioned in my presentation, I mean, innovation knows no borders. So the questions at hand cannot be tackled within one country only, and there needs to be collaboration across nations when it comes to cross-border payments. That's a typical example. Within the BIS Innovation Hub, that's a typical example, and I think we have that spirit. So that's definitely something. But something else that I'm also thinking of is, in Sweden, we are both on the sort of production side and on the supply side of technology quite interested. The society wants to take on new technology, and that also makes it much easier for companies to actually come and test in Sweden. So I think we're quite unique in that sense too. But I think there are others maybe in this panel who are better suited to explain exactly the specific differences across nations.
Okay, Dilan, thank you. Per, for example, what do you think about the uniqueness in the Swedish financial infrastructure?
I agree to large extent with the previous speakers, and I think it all starts with the trust that we have as Swedes have in our institution, both in the government and also in the corporations, that fosters a good environment for innovation. But also you have to remember that we are a very tech-savvy people. We are early adopters of pretty much every new technology that is out there, which also makes it easier for new, smaller or innovative companies to launch their products in Sweden. That comes with both risks and possibilities, as I mentioned in my earlier. But generally, I think us as Swedes, we're good at taking on new technology, which is really good for us as a society.
All right, thank you. Henrik, what do you say? What comes to your mind?
Yeah, I think that most things has already been said, so I want to look a bit forward instead and say that where we are at a very good level now, the next challenge is that what everyone wants. We are so customer driven, and that is key. So every customer wants all things to be integrated, and if we can do that in a smart way and broaden the collaboration without lacking pace, then we will be successful, and also mitigating the new risks that occur.
Okay, and Staffan, from your standpoint.
I think Henrik makes a very, very important point looking forward, and we are trying in our ways to facilitate a deeper discussion between the tech side and the traditional banking side, because I do think that we can be even stronger in the future if there are good connections today, but if we can strengthen them even more, I think we will build for the future in that. Okay,
Staffan. And Andreas.
Oh, so I agree with the previous speakers, but I will just like to emphasize that I think that the collaboration is what's really been special in the Nordics, and that's been very helpful.
Okay. I was thinking about, Dilan, you were mentioning sustainable financial infrastructure. A lot of those sessions that we had today, we've been talking about sustainability and connected to FinTech. And if I start with you, Dilan, how does that, what does that mean when you talk about sustainable financial infrastructure?
Well, I think from the sort of we have to think about sustainability going forward. We have to do that within the central banking perspective, because and in all aspects of central banking, really, both in our forecasts of the economy to how we work sort of on a daily basis. But this is also an area where there is more work being done, but where we have to push it even further. So we are, maybe that's somewhere where we still have a bit left to go in sort of catching up, I would say. Or catching up, maybe we're among the first, but I think we would still be, we have to push a lot in that area going forward.
Okay, thank you. Claire, how do you view this area?
I think that technology brings with it a lot of problems with sustainability, both when it comes to the environment, because you're suddenly using a lot more energy and you're using more and more computer components, but also sustainability problems when it comes to data integrity and personal integrity. And Sweden has done fairly well on both of them. We have things like enormous server farms up in the far north, so that significantly reduces the energy bill by just using the fact that it's very cold up there to keep the servers cool. But then when it comes to social sustainability, even before GDPR, Sweden has a long history of being mindful of the risks involved with personal integrity and data. And for a lot of private firms, there's also a long history of kind of having responsibility towards their consumers and their customers. And that hopefully we will see going on into the future, to make sure that finance isn't just a kind of, and FinTech isn't just winner take all, but both environmentally and socially sustainable.
Yeah, thank you. And Per, what is your take on sustainability and financial infrastructure?
Well, first, I think you have to acknowledge that there's quite a bit of rules coming now from the EU system with both disclosure and taxonomy, which I think are really, really important for promoting a sustainable financial industry. We need to define sustainability in the same way and talk about it and be transparent in a proper way, which is something that is coming now this spring with the disclosure requirements. And this also is true for the all the way down to the consumer, with the investment funds and all the advice that you get as a consumer, that it's possible for you to make a conscious decision if you want a more sustainable product or not. So this is not something that is a fad that will blow over. And this is going to be central to the financial system moving forward. So I think today is just the beginning of our discussions around sustainable finance, and we at FSA is heavily involved in this as well.
Yeah, I see that, dear panel, that our time is sort of running out, but is there anyone left of you four who want to grab this sort of issue of sustainability and financial infrastructure? So go ahead. We had time for one more comment.
But then I can say then that it's a topic that's on top of the agenda of the Bankers Association as well. And I agree with Per, with the work now being done on taxonomy and things. There is so much energy on doing things, but now we need a bit help with the directions. We go do the right things with those definitions.
Okay, so that will have to be the final word in this discussion. So thank you all, panelists, for being here today. And I'll say welcome to a new panel, because we're going to go for a follow-up discussion on this subject. And we say goodbye to you, but Claire, you will still be online. And I would like to welcome to this next panel Carl Andreas Claussen, which is already here. Mm-hmm. And then we have Hanna Raftel. Welcome. And then online we have Cecilia Repinski and Niklas Arvidsson. Right, so if we could take just a moment for the new panelists to sort of introduce themselves to our listeners, and let's do it the way that we've done it all day. That if you were to pitch yourself and your company and what you're doing, what would that sound like? So let's start with Hanna, for example.
Yeah, so my name is Hanna Raftel. I am the CEO of a FinTech startup called Fimento. And we are focusing on embedded finance, basically providing financial technology solutions for non-financial companies to be able to embed sort of financing for their end clients.
All right, thank you. And Cecilia, how does it sound from you?
Yes, thank you. I already had this opportunity earlier, so I'll be very quick. But
yeah, so you had to practice once before.
So I'm the founder and CEO of the Green Assets Wallet, which is a global trust platform for accelerating sustainable finance using fintech solutions. In particular, we provide green bond validation and impact reporting, and we use financial technology to make this happen. So I'm very inclined to comment on your question to the panel that was just ahead of us.
All right. And Niklas Arvidsson, who are you?
Yes, hello. Thank you for inviting me. My name is Nico Sarguson. I'm a researcher at KTH, Royal Institute of Technology, doing research on innovation in the payment sector. And my pitch, I guess, I've written a book on this story of how Sweden is becoming cashless, which now has 74,000 downloads. So you can download it for free at Springer.
All right. Good work. Okay, Claire and Carl Andreas, you've already introduced yourselves, so we skipped that. I hope that you were sort of part of listening into that discussion, that previous discussion that we had with the panel. So I just want to check and see if you have any reflections, ideas, thoughts from that discussion to start with. Cecilia, you were eager.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting that you asked the question about sustainability, because that's obviously where I'm coming from. I'm not a techie. I come from the sustainable finance area, but already 4 years ago, I started paying attention to how FinTech could work as a lever for accelerating sustainable finance. And that's how Stockholm Green Data Finance was created, which is now managed by FinTech. And at that time, it was definitely an underexplored area internationally and in Sweden. But to me, it was pretty clear that Sweden was uniquely placed to run innovation, breaking the silos basically between sustainable finance and financial technology, because in Sweden we have both a high demonstrated leadership in green finance and a high concentration of fintech innovators. And it appeared to me a little bit that in the previous panel that perhaps we are a bit blind to our own unique position in this place, but we are recognized for it internationally, not only because of Stockholm Green Data Finance, but also because we do stand out in terms of actual entrepreneurs that have evolved in the last couple of years, looking to technology for solving some big societal challenges. And just to mention, only a couple of weeks ago, I was in an international climate panel with 3 fintechs, Hemma, Economy, and Green Assets Wallet, all of them being Swedish. So obviously there was a big discussion around the secret Swedish ingredient and what it is going on in Sweden that fosters all of this great leadership, taking sustainable, financial technology as the lever for accelerating sustainable finance and sustainability. And I think it's really time that we recognize this unique position and foster this further. Because the way I see it, exploring these synergies between means that we can keep driving our position in green finance innovation and also stand out in terms of our unique selling proposition in the international fintech scene.
All right, thanks a lot for that. Hanna, what's your reaction to the discussion that we heard?
Yeah, no, first and foremost, I think it's super exciting to feel and hear all the energy and all. I think another sort of word that struck me was the collaboration, right? That there is a lot of collaboration going on across academia, across the regulatory bodies, the FinTech community and the legacy players and so on. And that I think is incredibly important. But I cannot help without noticing that all through the day, there's been a lot of talk about Sweden's excellence, and there's no doubt that there's a lot of excellency going on. But I think it's also important to recognize where there's still room for improvement and where we can do more. Yeah. And one example, I think, would be in terms of capital allocation, and I can't recall, but I think someone sort of mentioned that previously. But just to...
Yeah, I'm going to come back to that in my questions. So let's leave that for now. So Niklas, how do you find that previous discussion?
Yeah, I think it was very good. It covered a lot of very important things, and a lot of good things were said. I think, but I would like to add two things. I think that is, collaboration has been and is a Swedish tradition, which has been very important for success in this field. But it's stepping up now to another level. Now it's cross-border, it's cross-industry, and I think it's still, it has to prove itself that the actors can collaborate, that actually banks and fintechs can collaborate. And I think when I meet fintech startups, they often complain about what the aim of the Payment Service Directive 2 with open banking is not actually met in practice. So I think there's still a lot to prove when it comes to collaboration in this new phase. And then I think the other thing that was not mentioned but was mentioned now is the startups, because I think the fintech startups are the ones that really have put pressure on banks to start performing better and be more innovative. So we must not forget the important role of startups for putting pressure on the system and its actors.
All right. Yeah, thank you. Claire, you already had a shot at discussing the previous discussion, but have you thought of something more after that, or?
No, I mean, I do think that I agree with Hannah and indeed with Niklas is that there's room to grow. I mean, there are a lot of particularly environmental challenges that the financial industry could do a lot to support the world in making different decisions. And if we are leaders in that space, then yes, there's room to grow, but it's also a big responsibility to make sure that we actually have the kind of impact and participate in these sustainability discussions and allocate money in a responsible way.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Carl Andreas, you want to add something?
Yes, I following a bit on what you said. I was at a similar panel some weeks ago, and we were also talking about everything that's happening now and how innovative Sweden is, etc. But then when I came home, I started thinking, okay, user-friendliness of the payment products, they've been half bad for a pretty long time. Cross-currency payments have been awfully expensive for very, very long.
Yeah.
And very slow payments nationally also for very long. Why haven't we done anything about this long time ago?
Yeah.
We had technology. I think partly, and I'm speaking on my own capacity now, so it's not necessarily
not the central bank,
not necessarily the views of the central bank, but I think also as a central bank we have to think, why didn't we offer some real-time or instant retail settlement payments system before? Why didn't we think about it before? But it's also a bit surprising when you think about it. Why is all of this happening now? We've had technology to solve this a long time ago, but it didn't happen. It's good that it happens now, but...
Yeah, but I like to agree on that, because I think it's still annoying that you have to use almost everywhere. You have to have a credit card when you want to buy something. I mean, we have mobile phones that we take everywhere, so I just want to use my phone and pay directly to the retailer, for example. I mean, that's... why hasn't that happened, for example?
Yeah. So just to Yeah, we can work hard to be.
Yeah, so you got to speed it up, central bank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not only us.
No,
It's
I'm just
not
kidding.
only us.
I'm just kidding. So Hanna, let's get back to that question that you raised. We're talking about the uniqueness and how good we are in Sweden, and we are, but where can we do better?
No, but I think follow on to your comments there. I think we must not forget. Well, the infrastructure is great, but what do we use the infrastructure for, and what ultimately are our goals, right? And it's the end user that we should bear in mind.
Yeah.
So anything of that excellence, you need to provide something at the end, right? And I think here usability, pricing on financial products, the accessibility, but also across demographics, across, in terms of wealth management and so on and so forth, the whole notion of democratizing, right, the banking and financial services. I think there's more that we can do on that.
And what do you mean by that?
On top of it. Well, again, coming back to having the accessibility for everyone, young, old, no matter if you have a lot or a little, and so on and so forth. Because there's a lot of education as well. The notion of every company is going to be a FinTech company. And I think there's a lot to that. I think you will see that if you're a client of a retailer, why should you, when you go to checkout with a payment service, all of a sudden become a client of that payment service?
Yeah.
There is actually part of you remain a client of that e-commerce platform or retailer, right? So I think there will be, at least that what we see at Fimento, that we are turning that around somewhat, that you be able to provide the financial services where the client already is a client.
Yeah, right. So what about you guys online? Where can Sweden do better? If we start with Cecilia.
Well, I very much resonate with democratizing through financial technology, and obviously my perspective is sustainable finance, and something we see is that a lot of citizens or retail investors, so to speak, are very interested in supporting the sustainability transition and making impactful investments, but it may not be accessible to them because the ticket sizes are too large, etc. So I see loads of opportunities democratizing impact finance and making this available for everyone regardless of size. So that's one thing I really pick up on. Another thing that really strikes me is that a lot of things happening when it comes to driving sustainability through financial technology in Sweden is very much driven from a bottom-up perspective. And I think it would be interesting to learn a little bit from the Commission there, because I know that at the Commission, there's a lot of work looking into the synergies between the sustainable finance action agenda and the FinTech strategy, and explore how one can deliver value on the other. So I think that it could be interesting for Sweden to also understand what's going on there in the Commission in terms of supporting this from policy level as well.
All right, Niklas, what do you say? Where can we do better?
Well, I think the discussion here on sustainability is really a good discussion that we need to improve. I think I'm thinking of like payment services in a new generation will not only be payment services, but also include information on the effect of the environment or aspects related to businesses, logistics system, administration systems, customer relationship management, things like that. That is one way to improve the system. And then I think what the Riksbanken is doing with the E-Krona is also very interesting to actually develop a modern infrastructure in a non-cash society. There are a lot more, but I'll put those forward.
Okay. Thank you for that, Niklas. And Claire, you want to add something to that to-do list?
Yeah, two small things. I think Sweden is often a great test bed for a lot of services, but for fintechs, including Swedish ones, to really do well, they need to be able to scale outside of Swedish borders. And of course, we know that there are significant harmonization problems with access to the rest of the which is, of course, the next best step. So we really need to see that happens for the good of fintech, and also for the transfer of some of these important values that they're available in the rest of Europe. But another problem that's fairly significant for Swedish startups, and has become a big one now under COVID, has been entrepreneurial finance, and particularly early stage financing. And if small firms can't attract enough financing to kind of get off the starting block, then they don't really have a chance to get going. And I think that's something. Yes, there is significant financing a little bit down the line, but that's something that we could do a lot more, particularly in attracting financiers. In fact, it's an opportunity for financiers in the rest of the world to invest early and make it big, if you will.
Okay, thank you, Claire. Carl Andreas, were you finished, or do you want to add something on your to-do list?
To-do list for a central bank. So we are working with much more than what I've kind of gave you.
No. So let's stop there.
Yeah, I think we.
Yeah. Okay. So time's up. Thanks for the discussion, and see you out there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.